Welcome, my name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And today, I just felt like talking about a brand new horror movie, a brand new, supernatural horror movie. And I think it's been out for a while in other countries, but in terms of the US, I think it's only been out for a week or two. I checked it out, was it Thursday or Friday night? And so I just felt like sharing my thoughts on Saint Maud. So let's get started. So in Saint Maud, you have a nurse named Maud, and she's been assigned to this old dancer retired dancer who has some health issues and needs a nurse. And basically, she tries to save her. Maud goes through a crisis of faith throughout this movie, and there's a bunch of odd visuals and stuff that we'll get to, and so that's basically my layman's version of the plot. But there's a lot more to it than just that, especially on a psychological level. So then getting into the acting is really, really good. But I see people talking about Morfydd Clark's performance, like this outstanding performance, like one of the best we've had in years. And I personally didn't get that. I got a really good performance, but to compare it to recent years, I don't think it's quite as good as Toni Collette in Hereditary, Florence Pugh in Midsommar, Lupita Nyong'o in Us, even Elizabeth Moss in the Invisible Man. And I don't think her performance, even though I think it's really good, I don't think it's quite up there as a lot of other people are saying it is. And I was actually more impressed by Jennifer Ehle, the actress who played Amanda, the retired dancer. I actually almost preferred her performance and character a little more. And now getting into the visuals, this is probably the brightest aspect of this movie, the best part about it. It's got amazing cinematography. There are beautiful images that almost look like paintings at times, and then there's also moments, particularly roughly in the middle of the movie, where she's going through the crisis of faith that the movie is, and she kind of backslides a little bit, and the camera just does a great job of kind of shaking and moving a little bit to make you feel uneasy, to make it feel a little uneasy without necessarily going the full Cloverfield route and giving you motion sickness. It just does a really great job of that. And then also in the visuals, it does a really great job of doing some body horror elements at moments as well, even though it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's the goriest. It's far from one of the goriest movies out there, but there are still some great moments of just body horror in there that I think are executed very well, especially from a visual standpoint. And so now that we're getting into the story and the writing, this is kind of where my issue, as you can see if you saw the thumbnail, I put in overrated with question marks. And that's because I'm a little unsure how I feel about this, mainly because of the story. It's not that the story is bad, it's fairly straightforward. And it does a great job diving into the psychology, and even though it does a great job diving into the psychology of the character of Maud, the religious themes that they put in, I think they do a decent job, but I don't think they do as good of a job as the movie itself seems to think it's doing, in my opinion. And on top of that, I'm okay with slow burns, but I think this was almost a little too much because it felt like they had a TV episode's worth of story to tell, but they stretched it out to make it a feature length. So even though it's only a little over 80 minutes, so it's already a pretty short movie, it almost feels like you could cut a half hour out of the movie and it would still be just as impactful, if not more. And also, partly to go along with the story elements and why I think that kind of hurts it a little bit, is because Hereditary, for instance, which I'm a massive fan of, is paced perfectly, and it makes it to where you can feel the terror when it happens and everything. In this movie, I didn't feel any terror. I didn't feel any horror at all. Yeah, there were horrific elements that would appear on screen, but I didn't feel horror while watching it. It just felt like I was watching someone go through a crisis of faith and step on tacks, which I've done before, and that part does make you feel uneasy, but it doesn't necessarily give me horror in the same way that something like Hereditary does. And then lastly, the sound. The sound design is very, very good. It's right up there with the visuals in terms of being the brightest spot. I'd still give it to the visuals, but this is like a close second to the brightest aspect and the brightest spot of this movie. You've got a nice subtle score in there, and you just got a great sound design. It's silent when it needs to be silent. And so overall, I think on a technical level, Saint Maud, especially when it comes to visuals and sound, the movie is immaculate. It is amazing. But even though I think the acting is really good, I think people might be overrating it a little bit or overhyping the acting. And then the story, I think, is decent, but I don't think it tackles the themes, especially from a religious standpoint, as well as it thinks it does. That being said, it's still visually magnificent, and it has probably one of my favorite endings and last shots, if you will, that I've seen in quite a long time. And just if you haven't watched this yet, just make sure you don't blink until the credits roll. And the main reason I put the overrated thing in the thumbnail and stuff is simply because I see a lot of people talking about this movie like it's a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 masterpiece. And while I do think, like I said, the visuals and sound are great, I just didn't get that feeling from me. It didn't terrify me. I didn't feel horror while watching it. So with all that being said, I'm going to have to give Saint Maud, it's still going to be a positive score, that being a 3.5. Thanks for watching this video. Some of these art house horror movies could sometimes be divisive within the horror community. There's a couple of them that I love to death. There's a couple of them I was disappointed by. They're kind of hit or miss for me personally, but tell me your thoughts on Saint Maud in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video and this review, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon, smash that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well to stay tuned and stay up to date on my channel. Recently I've started doing review series, so don't miss those, and I will return next time when I see you again.